All right, totals for week 33. Total expenses were $683 at 27 cents per mile. Total revenue was $4,950 at $1.93 per mile. That brought our net settlement to $4,266 at $1.66 per mile. Welcome back to Trucking the Seven Seas. This is episode number 106, and in this episode, we're going to cover week 33 and 34 of running my own authority. For this episode, we run primarily in the Midwest before taking a long load back to the West Coast for the holidays. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I started this channel in order to show exactly what truck drivers make. We started as a company driver, working for night transportation, moved on to a lease operator, working for night transportation, then an owner-operator, working for Landstar, and now we are an owner-operator running our own authority. I show all of the loads I take, what the revenue is, what the expenses are, and what my net cash flow is, and I compile all this information that I put into a spreadsheet that I share with you at the end of every video. So if this is a topic that interests you, follow the channel. But last episode, we left off in Prescott, Wisconsin, so we dropped a load out in Wisconsin there, and then looked for another one, again trying to stay in the Midwest for the week. So we were looking around, and we ended up finding this load right over here. I'll just go ahead and cover Werner Enterprises. So this one is going from Ellsworth, Wisconsin to Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's 542 loaded miles, 18 empty miles. Paid $1,200 at $2.21 per mile. Yeah, so for the last couple of weeks, Wisconsin has been really good. There's not a lot of freight coming out of there, but the rates are still paying really good. There's not a lot of freight coming in, but there's way less freight coming in than there is going out. So there's under capacity up there for the last couple of weeks, and that's the way it's been. So I've been doing pretty well out of there. This one, pretty decent load, given market conditions. $2.21 per mile, $1,200, 500 miles going to Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is also a perfectly fine market. So yeah, this is what I grabbed. Thought I did just fine on this one, and now we're headed to Indiana. Let's go. Okay, so we dropped that load out in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Then looking for another one. Anywhere in the Midwest is fine. So we're looking around, and we ended up finding this load right here. So this one's going from New Bremen, Ohio to Lebanon, Missouri. 598 loaded miles, 80 empty miles, paid $1,100 at $1.84 per mile. And this load was not the best. I did play some games on Tuesday, so I kind of waited a little bit to try to find something decent, I guess, a little, maybe like an emergency load out there in Fort Wayne. So I was waiting in Fort Wayne, didn't book the first load I could find, and ended up waiting a little bit, and it just kind of didn't work out. So yeah, I could have probably booked something better in the morning, but I ended up not doing so because I waited, basically. I tried to play some games here, so played some games, and it didn't work out. So we're headed to Missouri. Missouri is an okay market, but it's not the greatest. I mean, there are definitely better markets out there, so I wasn't too pleased with this one, but this is what I ended up booking, and I guess, you play stupid games and you get stupid prizes, which is what I got here. So we're going to Missouri, which is okay, but there were certainly some better loads I could have booked, but this is what I ended up grabbing. So let's go to Missouri. Okay, so we dropped that load out in Lebanon, Missouri, then looking for another one. Trying to get back to the Midwest. Missouri is, again, kind of a so-so market, so I wasn't too pleased coming out here. Thought it would be okay-ish, but it kind of wasn't. So I was looking around, and this is pretty much the only load I could find out there to get back to the Midwest. So this one's going from Springfield, Missouri to Yoder, Indiana. Yoder, Indiana is actually Fort Wayne again. 577 loaded miles, 54 empty miles, paid $950 at $1.65 per mile. So that's not good. Didn't, I wasn't sure if Lebanon or Missouri would be bad or good. I didn't think it would be great, but I ended up booking the load out there because that's what I played some games there. So went out there, then basically couldn't get out of there for a very good rate, and that's just kind of the way it was. So I wanted to get back to the Midwest. I did consider going to Dallas or something like that, but this was basically the best load I could find. Now this was like a first come first serve on both ends, so that helps. You just drop it. It's real quick, and I think it was also pretty light. Is also that was helpful. I think it was only like 15,000 pounds or something like that. So that wasn't well, that helped a little, but in the end, this wasn't a very good load, but it's all I could find to get back to the Midwest. So that's what we ended up booking, and now we're headed to Yoder, Indiana, which is Fort Wayne again. Let's go. Okay, so we dropped that load out in Yoder, Indiana. Then look for another one. Definitely going to stay in the Midwest. Not going to play too many games anymore because it's kind of not working out. But we were looking around, and it was like I think it was a Wednesday when I did that, or maybe it was a Thursday. I think I dropped it Thursday morning, and then looking for a short one to just kind of fill some time and then grab a weekend load on Friday. So I was looking around, and I ended up finding this load right here. So this one's going from Marion, Indiana to Marion, Ohio. 140 loaded miles, 52 empty miles, paid $650 at $4.64 per mile. Yeah, so super short load on this one, 140 miles. It just gets me a little bit closer to Cleveland. And just it was sort of a filler load of like, all right, it's Thursday, grab a short one, drop it Friday morning, grab another one, carry me through the weekend. And this one fulfilled that perfectly. So $650, $4 per mile. Obviously, $4 per mile is excellent, but the revenue is kind of low. There's always a balance between getting high revenue and high rate per mile. The lower the revenue, the higher the rate per mile, and vice versa. This one's obviously on the shorter end, but it worked out very well for me. It was, quick first come first serve again. Filled up Thursday, wake up Friday in kind of close to Cleveland-ish area, and then from Cleveland we'll grab another one over the weekend. So this one was perfectly fine. Juice the rate per mile anyway. And yeah, so let's go from Marion, Indiana to Marion, Ohio now. Let's go. All right, so I dropped that load out in Marion, Ohio. Then looking for another one. Again, just trying to stay in the Midwest. That's where I like it. Weather's good, market's good. It's nice and flat, and it's kind of pretty out there this time of year. It was turning fall season, so the trees were starting to change colors, so that's always cool. So just trying to stay out here for a number of reasons. And I was looking around, and I ended up finding this load right here. So this one's going from Elyria, Ohio to Evansville, Indiana. 447 loaded miles, 60 empty miles. Paid $1,050 at $235 per mile. Yeah, so loads like this, kind of bread and butter. $1,000 of revenue, 400 miles, $235 per mile. If I could do nothing but book loads like this all day, every day, we'd be pretty solid. Heading to Evansville, Indiana, which is kind of by Indianapolis, kind of westward of it. You can deadhead to Indianapolis for sure from a load like this. But yeah, thought this one was totally fine. So going from Ohio to Indiana, pretty standard. And yeah, pretty standard lows. So that's what we ended up doing. So now we're going to Evansville, Indiana. Let's go. Okay, so I dropped that load out in Evansville, Indiana. Then I was looking for another one. Couldn't find much directly in Evansville, so I kind of expanded my search radius a bit to encompass Indianapolis. It's about 150, 160, 170 miles to Indianapolis, depending on how far into Indianapolis you're going. So that's what I ended up doing, because I couldn't find a whole lot in the close to Evansville. So that's what I did, and I ended up finding this load right here. So this one's going from Whiteland, Indiana to Curtis, Wisconsin. 525 loaded miles, 165 empty miles, paid $1,000 at $1.90 per mile. Yeah, so this one going to Wisconsin. Again, Wisconsin, very good market. Happy to be going up there again. So a little bit high on the deadhead. I didn't like that very much, but it is what it is. This is I couldn't find much in Evansville, basically. So found this one, going to Wisconsin, picked it up, and it's going to Curtis, Wisconsin. And if you remember a couple episodes ago, I actually dropped another load in Curtis, Wisconsin. And this isn't a big place, so it's kind of funny that it's the exact same town. I mean, the town is like 400 people or something like that. So I think a couple of weeks ago, I dropped another load to a Mennonite farm out there. So I dropped it there, and on this one actually, I dropped another load to another Mennonite farm that was like 5 miles away. Different farmer, but I did mention when I dropped it, I was like, "Hey, do you know I dropped another load to a Mennonite farmer kind of down the road. Do you know him?" And I couldn't remember the other Mennonite's farmer name, but he was like, "Yeah, yeah, I can't remember." So kind of interesting though. Yeah, so I dropped another load a couple weeks ago in Curtis, Wisconsin, town of like 400 people, to a Mennonite farm, and then this one I dropped another load to Curtis, Wisconsin, to another Mennonite farmer out in Wisconsin. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So yeah, headed back to Curtis, Wisconsin, and then should be able to get out of there for a decent rate, considering that Wisconsin is just really good right now. So thought this one was okay, given market conditions. So let's go to Curtis, Wisconsin. All right, so I dropped that load out in Curtis, Wisconsin. Then I was looking for another one. Anywhere in the Midwest is fine. So I was looking around, and I ended up finding this load right here. So this one is going from Stanley, Wisconsin to Salone, Ohio. 672 loaded miles, 71 empty miles, paid $1,400 at $2.08 per mile. Yeah, so this one is okay. I didn't get out of Wisconsin for the same rate as last week, but still not too bad. $2.08 for 670-mile load. That's just more, what's pretty standard for the market these days. So this one's going to Salone, Ohio. Ohio is an okay market. Last week it kind of died down, but I noticed that this week it did a lot better. So it's just sort of fluctuating out there. So grab this one, perfectly fine. Drop it, then look for another one. So that's what we ended up doing, and now we're headed to Salone, Ohio. Let's go. Okay, so I dropped that load out in Salone, Ohio. And then at this point, I decided that I would head back to the West Coast. So I am from the West Coast. All of my family is out there. And I was going to head back out there in preparation for all the holidays because I want to be close to family during Christmas, during Thanksgiving. I don't want to have to book like a 2,000-mile load to get back to family members on the West Coast. So at this point, I decided, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and head back. It was, I think, a Wednesday or something like that when I dropped that Salone one. And then I was just looking to find another one heading immediately back to the West Coast, drop it on Monday, and then be ready to go. Decided I was going to go ahead and go over to the Pacific Northwest where I'm from, stop by, visit some family there, take a couple of days off. So I was looking for a load basically West Coast, and in this instance, the Pacific Northwest, Washington or Oregon. So that's what I ended up doing. I found a load going from Ohio to Sumner, Washington, and I ended up booking that load, and now we're actually headed back to the West Coast. But because that load is so long, it is not going to make the paycheck, so we're going to go ahead and get into the spreadsheet right now. All right, so as discussed, we're going to cover week 33 and 34 this week. Let's do it. For week 33, we did 5 loads. In those 5 loads, we got 2,568 miles. Paid a total of $4,950 at $1.93 per mile. Fuel expenses, we fueled up 4 times. In those 4 times, we paid $631 at 25 cents per mile. There were no maintenance expenses this week. Other expenses, scales, $14, and that's it. Fixed costs, ELD payment came in at $37, and that was it there. All right, totals for week 33. Total expenses were $683 at 27 cents per mile. Total revenue was $4,950 at $1.93 per mile. That brought our net settlement to $4,266 at $1.66 per mile. All right, so caveats for the week. There's a couple. I mean, starting with the loads, pretty standard week in terms of running the Midwest. This is pretty much, textbook running the Midwest, trying to grab around 1,000-mile average loads, revenue per load, which I mostly did here. Obviously, this one's a little short, but this one's high. So pretty standard week. 5 loads for running the Midwest, 2,500 miles, just about $5,000 of revenue, almost $2 per mile. That's about what you're going to be able to do in the Midwest from what I've been seeing. Yeah, this is like a very standard week right here for running the Midwest. If you could do this every week, you're doing okay, all things considered, and that's basically what I did. So yeah, I mean, textbook week in the Midwest right there. Fuel expenses, they were pretty low. I'm just guessing I started the week full and ended the week empty. That's why the bill is so low. So that's what's going on there. 25 cents per mile for fuel is not normal. So there's that. Yeah, and in terms of all the other stuff, I mean, this is kind of the big caveat. There were no maintenance expenses, basically no other expenses, and basically no fixed costs. So no costs came in here, so that's pretty rare. Usually there's a maintenance expense or some tolls or something that comes in, but just nothing came in this week. So that brought our expenses down to a really low level. $600, just about $700 for the week is not normal at all. Not saying that's going to happen every week because it is not. Decent revenue, leading me to overall just a very good settlement. Not normal here, just, I mean, the expenses are just so low on this week that this ended up being a very good week. But that's about it. So there is week 33. Very good week. Very low expenses, decent revenue. So let's go ahead now and move on to week 34. For week 34, we did 2 loads. In those 2 loads, we got 1,433 miles. Paid a total of $2,400 at $1.67 per mile. Fuel expense, we fueled up 2 times and had our IFTA payment come in for a total of $989 at 69 cents per mile. And there were no maintenance expenses. Other expenses, scales 29, and that's it for a total of 2 cents per mile. Fixed costs, we had our insurance payment come in for $2,023. Our trailer payment came in for $687. Our DAT load board subscription came in at $18 for a total of $2,700 at $1.90 per mile. All right, totals for week 34. Total expenses were $3,748 at $2.62 per mile. Total revenue was $2,400 at $1.67 per mile. That brought our net settlement to negative $1,348 at negative 94 cents per mile. Okay, yeah, so big caveat here is that you see there's only 2 loads here. So grabbed that load, headed back to the West Coast. So I grabbed a load from Ohio and is going to Sumner, Washington, which is like a 2,200 mile load. That one was done. I picked it up Thursday morning and then basically ran it Thursday and Friday. I ran it Thursday and Friday. So there's like, I don't know, $2,000+ of missing revenue on this one. So that's what's going on there. There's basically $2,000 of missed revenue because picked it up Thursday, ran it Thursday, ran it Friday. I end my weeks on Friday, so there's just $2,000 of missing revenue here. So that's what's going on there. Yeah, and then fuel expenses. Fuel expenses were somewhat high because I fueled up on the Sumner, Washington load this week, but the revenue isn't going to come in until next week. So my fuel bill is also high. And then also I paid IFTA. So IFTA, I put it on my fuel bill because it is the tax I would have paid on fuel had I been fueling up like according to the IFTA regulation correctly. So basically I put IFTA on fuel bill, and overall I had a very high fuel bill this week as a result. Yeah, and then to kind of pour salt in the wounds, so I was low on revenue. And then, of course, my insurance payment came in at $2,000. My trailer payment came in at $600. So that hurts a lot. That's, about $2,700 worth of expenses coming in on a single week. And, when you're short $2,000 of revenue and then $2,700 of payments come in, you're just going to have a bad week. So right there, I mean, if I had had the roughly $2,500 of revenue on this, it would be better, right? We'd be in the green, roughly $1 per mile almost. But obviously didn't happen. I'm not too worried about it because, again, I'm just missing revenue. I ran this Sumner load Thursday and Friday, and then that's, roughly $2,000 of revenue that I am just simply missing on this. And then the payments came in, so it is what it is. But there's week 34, so let's go ahead and move on to overalls now. All right, totals since starting the program. We have driven a total of 80,343 miles. Total expenses have been $90,000 at $1.12 per mile, and that is my cost per mile. Total revenue has been $149,000 at $1.86 per mile. That brings our total profit loss to $59,000 at 74 cents per mile, and all of these loads are dry van. Averages and other information. Average weekly paycheck is $1,750. Average weekly miles is 2,300 miles. Total fuel cost has been $33,000 at 42 cents per mile, and our average price per gallon is $3.22. Total maintenance cost has been $21,000 at 27 cents per mile, and if we kept this up for a 52-week period, we'd make $91,000 and drive 122,000 miles. Total revenue has been $149,000 at $4,400 per week. Total deadhead has been 7,000 miles at 8.8% of total mileage. We've been employed 227 days, or 34 weeks, taking 19 days off, 196 days on duty, 96 total loads. Average load length is 837 miles. And if we had a theoretical $500 truck payment, we would make $42,000 at 53 cents per mile. Okay, boys, so where are we at? Well, we are not in a good spot. That's where we're at. 74 cents per mile. 74 cents per mile. That's where we're sitting at right there. This is with a paid-off truck. If you add in a theoretical truck payment of $500 per week, it would drop down to 53 cents per mile. And I think this is probably a more accurate depiction of what I'm making, because this also you could also say that this is truck replacement cost, right? So eventually the truck I'm in right now is going to blow up, and after it blows up, I have to buy a new truck, and if you were minus the cost of the new truck from this 74 cents per mile, yeah, you're probably looking at about 55, 60 cents per mile is what we're pulling right now. That's what we're pulling right now. Market's just not good. I mean, the market is just not good. I'm booking these loads. I'm not just booking the first load I'm getting. This one right here, this Lebanon node, I think I made like 10, 15, 20 offers. I don't remember exactly before I finally booked one. Played games that day, and it kind of backfired because I ended up going to Missouri, and then I had issues getting out of Missouri. So it's not like I'm booking the first load. I'm throwing out offers. I'll throw out an offer, talk to the broker. We can't come to an agreement on the load. I'll hang up, see if he wants to call me back. Broker never calls me back. I look on the load board a little while later, and the load is gone, meaning somebody booked it less for what I had offered. Yeah, and it's all just like economics, right? If somebody will haul the load for less than I will, they're going to get the load. And when you just have a huge amount of trucks on the road, what's to be done, right? You can just say, oh yeah, just don't book cheap freight. That's very easy to type in the comment section, but it's either book loads at like, $1.86 per mile, or the truck sits. I got insurance payments, I got trailer payments, I got all this. So you can't just sit. And, if you're looking to come into the market, you're going to end up doing something like this. I will say, don't go dry van. Go flatbed. You have a better chance. But it's just not good right now. If you're going to get into it, well, you better be prepared for this right here. This is what you're going to be looking at. So that is where we are at. Now, things have been looking slightly up recently. My maintenance expenses have started to stall. I think we were at like 32 cents at one point per mile. Now we're at 27 cents per mile. So that's better. I stopped blowing radiators recently and whatnot, so that's okay, knock on wood. I'm sure I'll have some other issues in the future, but that has been somewhat helpful in the last month or so. I haven't had any major issues. I think the last one I had was the water pump that blew, but that was about a month ago or so. So there's that. And then, yeah, I guess one saving grace for this year is that the fuel price has been really good. $3.22 per mile for diesel is not too bad at all. So that's one thing. Okay, the fuel price hasn't been too awful. But other than that, yeah, things just aren't looking good right now. If this continues next year, going back to company, I'm going to go join a private fleet. So I'm going to give it one more year basically. And next year, to try to salvage the situation, I'm planning on trying to do LTL. I think less than truckload would be pretty solid, because right now I have a dry van, and while the dry van is not a specialized equipment set at all, I can sort of turn my operation into a specialized equipment set by doing LTL loads. And I think long distance LTL loads could be right up my alley. I do like doing long distance loads anyway, kind of the OTR stuff, and I think that could maybe salvage the situation next year. We'll see how it goes. But that is where we are at right now. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for this episode. Quick, down, and dirty. So I am out in the Pacific Northwest right now. I'm going to go visit some family, so I am going to take some time off. And then I'll be taking time off for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So right now I've only taken like 19 days off. Yeah, 19 days off uh, over the course of 34 weeks, so less than a day off per week. But I'm going to take some time off this week, take some time off during Thanksgiving, take some time off during Christmas. So this is going to kind of bump up. I think by the end of the year, I'll end up taking like maybe 1 day off per week or something like that. So that's happening. So next week, I do have the Sumner load carrying over, but then I'm taking time off, and the Sumner load is pretty much going to be the only load on the paycheck. And then, yeah, so next week will be a little bit weird, and the week after will be a little bit weird because I am taking time off. And then I'm officially on the West Coast. Gonna stay here, gonna start running Los Angeles, Phoenix, Vegas, Salt Lake, Reno, and that kind of area. I might also run Texas as well. Texas could be good. Basically, coming back to the West Coast to be close to family, run Los Angeles, and also just kind of stay out of the weather in the Midwest and, the Wyoming, stuff like that. If I don't have to run there, I'm not going to run there, and it's totally fine to run Los Angeles. It's not like it's a bad market anyway, so it's kind of a win-win-win just coming down here to Los Angeles, Vegas, Phoenix. Market's fine down here, especially during the holidays, and I avoid all of the shearing Wyoming weather that's coming their way. I think there's already been some crashes out there because of weather, so I'm fine avoiding that. So that's what we're doing. We're on the West Coast, and we're going to start running the West Coast from now on. But that will pretty much do it for this episode, guys. If you're interested in this spreadsheet or any of the other spreadsheets I've done in the past, you can find them in the About section down below. After you find them, just hit File, Download, and then download them to a Microsoft Excel sheet. And then once you get them to an Excel sheet, you're free to use them however you please. If you need a factoring company, I would recommend OTR Solutions. I do currently use them for both factoring and fuel, and they're fantastic. There's a link in the About section down below. If you use that link and sign up with them, it does help me out a ton. And mind you, they do have a fuel card, and the fuel card gets excellent discounts at places like Petro and TA. So if you need a fuel card, you can sign up for them and use their fuel card as well, and that also helps me out. So I'd appreciate that. And if you want to donate to my work, there is a Buy Me a Coffee link in the About section down below. YouTube takes like 30 or 40% of the super chats and whatnot. So if you want to download, or if you want to donate directly, you could just use Buy Me a Coffee. They only take like 3%, so it's a lot better. And that would be very helpful, and I would greatly appreciate it. But that'll pretty much do it for this episode, guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.